Have you ever wondered why you can't get certain jobs? Why is it that you can't get your career or business going even though you're a capable, dedicated, and intelligent worker? And is there a way to know which areas of the job market you'll be successful at? I'm happy to tell you that yes, with Vedic Astrology, you can absolutely tell in advance where you're supposed to be working, whether that means having a traditional career or starting your own business. In this video, I'll tell you how to choose your career with astrology so you can stop wasting your time applying to jobs that don't hire you. You can minimize aimless wandering, and you can stay away from failed business attempts altogether. So you can actually focus on working on a career or business path that will actually bear fruit in the long run. Hey, I'm Aileen. I'm just a crazy girl that believes in astrology. And if once I learned Vedic astrology, I understood why I had spent almost 10 years failing to convert my art hobby into my art business. When I was an extremely dedicated and capable worker, I always managed to have a full-time job at all times. So why couldn't I make the jump? And if I had actually known how to choose a career with astrology, I would have realized that I was wasting my time on an area of my life that is not designed to bear fruit, and I mean in terms of sustaining myself. Because as much as capitalism wants us to believe that if we just try really hard, we will attain whatever we want, there are people failing at their businesses every day. So how can we actually understand if we're in the right path? I would really like to help you with that. So let's save you the time and effort and just get into it. To know how to choose a career with astrology, you only need to look at one area of your Vedic astrology chart, and that is Saturn. It really drives me crazy that when you go on social media, so many people talk about the 10th house, the 7th house, the 6th house. In Western astrology, they tell you to look at your midheaven. And to be honest, if you're a beginner, that's just gonna confuse you. Because in my opinion, those are secondary factors that you need to look at after you looked at your Saturn placement. And I'll tell you why. Because in Vedic astrology, Saturn is a very slow moving planet. It takes about 30 years to move around the sun, and it takes 2.5 years to go from one zodiac sign to another, which is why Saturn represents delay, restriction, karma. Saturn also represents discipline and hard work, and it also represents commitment because Saturn is exalted in Libra, which is the original 7th house of partnerships and commitment. So if you actually take a look at where your Saturn is placed in your Vedic astrology chart, you're gonna understand where in life you have a karmic debt that you need to play out in this lifetime. Meaning, which area of your life do you have a commitment towards that you cannot move from, because Saturn is restriction. You are restricted to this area of life. So if you think about Saturn like an anchor, you can actually see the perimeter in your life under which you can work hard and actually receive a reward. And I know what I just said kind of sounds really negative, but to look at the positive side of that is to understand exactly which area of your life you are most likely to thrive if you take on work or career or business. Because the universe is expecting you to work in this area of life, and Saturn rewards hard work. So if you look at your Saturn placement and which zodiac sign is in, which house is in, which planets you have on there, and also remember to look at Saturn's aspect. Saturn aspects the 3rd, 7th, and 10th house from itself, and that will give you a good idea of the foundation or perimeter of life in which you should be looking to find a job or a career. And then after that, you can start looking at all the other placements, like yes, the 10th house, the 6th house, the 7th house, to get more deeper understanding of all the flavors that are going to go into your work or career. But Saturn will always be the foundation and the area from which you have an obligation to serve. Oh, and not to mention that because Saturn is a slow moving planet, even those of you that only have an estimated time of birth are still very likely to have the right placement of your Saturn when you look up your birth chart, because like I said, it is so slow moving. If you are having a difficult time obtaining your exact time of birth, there's a high likelihood that your Saturn will be in its correct zodiac sign at the very minimum. So I really want to encourage you to look back at your past jobs and maybe even big life obligations and see how they relate to your Saturn placement in your birth chart. And start to find the common thread because it may not be obvious at first glance. Now, if you have a retrograde Saturn, you're going to require a little bit more thinking and examining to your placement. Because retrograde planets are going backwards, they could potentially be read from the house before. So you're going to examine your life and try to understand, is your Saturn functioning and kind of anchoring you to that house and zodiac sign in which it's placed? Or is it anchoring you to the house before, in the zodiac sign before, under which the Saturn is showing up when you look at your birth chart? Or is it showing up in both areas of your life? So you're just gonna have to think a little bit more about how exactly is it manifesting in your life. Lastly, I do want to emphasize, as always, that astrology is not a get rich quick scheme. Just because you look at your Saturn doesn't mean you're gonna make a lot of money. You could read your natal chart and realize you're not actually meant to have a lot of money in this lifetime. But even then you will find that your Saturn placement acts as an anchor in your life. And maybe anchor has the bad connotation. I just mean Saturn is going to delineate the perimeter in which you are meant to live out karma, and Saturn is related to work, thus why we can relate it to our career. And I'm gonna be honest, it took me months to understand what my Saturn placement meant and how my past jobs were always related to it. Depending on which house it's in, you may have an easier or harder time understanding. We all understand certain houses much more easily, just naturally as we're learning astrology. So give yourself time to honestly just think about it. Let it marinate in your mind and see what are the common threads that connect them all to that sign and place. Because even though you have a Saturn placement in one area of your chart, remember that in Vedic astrology we're constantly going through Maharajas, and so every planetary period might have an effect on what you're doing at the time. This is why I say look for the common threads among all of your previous job experience and see how they connect to your Saturn so you can better understand where you're supposed to be working and thriving. So I really hope this video has helped you understand how you could choose a career with astrology. Let me know in the comment section of this video if you find that common thread between your Saturn placement and your previous jobs experience. Lastly, if you want to get a deeper understanding of how to choose a career or how you can make money using astrology, take a look at my video, How to Make Money According to Astrology, which is a much more in-depth video. Thank you so much for watching. If you still are, subscribe if you'd like to continue talking about Vedic astrology, and I'll see you in the next one.